folks, the Celtic Nerd here, bringing you another nerdy video. This is the Celtic Nerd Talks, and what we're going to be talking about today, folks, as you can probably tell by this big ass image over here, is Percy Jackson and the Olympians. We are going to be talking about episode 7 and how it correlates to the books, and just my general thoughts on it. Now, this episode brings us to my favourite version of the underworld in most mythologies, and that is Hades, which shares the same name as, well, the god that rules over it. Now, there are, funny enough, two gods associated with the underworld. Now, again, the official name in Greek mythology is generally actually Hades. They use the term Hades for both referring to the god and to the underworld. But I like to say underworld because it is one of many underworlds. So, let's start things off with the gods that are associated with this underworld in general Greek myth, and they actually do show up in the Percyverse, or the Rickverse as some people refer to it now. Long-time readers of the books tend to refer to it as the Rickverse because Percy Jackson slowly becomes the non-main character, and the main cast is there's so many main characters at a certain point, and eventually Percy even takes a back seat to a fair bit of other characters, that it's better to refer to as the Rickverse for Rick Riordan, as opposed to calling the Percyverse. There are so many books. There's the Percy Jackson and the Olympians. There's Heroes of Olympus, where there's seven seven children of prophecy. There's Magnus Chase as the main character. Now, his series relies heavily on the Egyptian gods. There's Trials of the Apollo, which, as you can imagine, they star Apollo, and apparently there is another series that ties into the Norse gods. Apparently, I'm not. I don't quote me on that. I tend to not look too much into it because I'm currently hopefully going through them all. But yeah, again, there's a reason why it's referred to as the Rickverse. Now, mind you, we did get the sixth. Sorry, this is. I'm not sponsored, but again, I like to be excited about things. And again, I do not write scripts for these videos, but I am excited about the fact that we got this sixth book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series. However, you do not read the sixth book after the fifth. The sixth book takes place after the events of Heroes of Olympus. So you need to read Percy Jackson and the Olympians 1 to 5, read Heroes of Olympus, and then you backtrack to the new sixth book that came out last year. It came out just before Christmas. Anyway, back to the show. So, back to what I was referring to is there's Thanatos, which is the god of death. He actually is the one that goes around and reaping souls. Then there's a lesser god some associate him as. Again, I don't know if he's a lesser god, but then some people talk. There's different conflicting things, where Chiron is referred to as being a lesser god, and then there's where he's not. He's just a famous figure. I'm gonna say he's a lesser god at the very least. There's Chiron, the ferryman. So that you could argue three gods. But then there's Hades, the big man himself, who oversees everything. So we start episode 7 off with a bit that with something that I thought they were going to skip over. I honestly thought they were going to skip over it, but they didn't. I'm so excited that they introduced it. They did modify where the entrance to the underworld that they use is located. So they enter a waterbed sales shop, and which is being run by that's called Krusty's Waterbeds, and Walks in, sees the clerk, who again fits the book's description like you wouldn't believe. Absolutely nailed it. Oh, fantastic. Now, a big change in this scene compared to the book. God damn, my allergies. I took antihistamines now. Oh, but yeah, big change is Percy identifies Christie as Procrustes, a famous figure in Greek myth, and he identifies him as "You're a son of Poseidon" as well. So they have a bit of back and forth. Procrustes, or as he like prefers to be referred to as Christie, is he's like, don't go to the underworld. There's no point. And he's talking to Percy. He's like, look, the gods are going to try and make you fit, and they're going to stretch you and twist you to the way that they want things to be. Like that's the whole point of this episode. We'll get into it quite a bit because there is a lot of flashbacks here in this episode. I need to get them shout out. It's starting to itch. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of that throughout this episode in terms of like the gods influencing people to be what they want them to be rather than letting them be who they are. And so in the book, Krusty traps Grover and Annabeth on a waterbed, and he is threatening to cut off parts of them. That like they're being because they fit because they don't fit, they're too short. The beds are slowly trying to stretch them out because that's what he does. He attempts to kill people with over hospitality, and he insists that the beds and the people be the perfect fit. So if your bed is like 6 feet in length, he wants you to be 6 feet in length. He doesn't want a bed to be too short or too long. So he will stretch you, or if you're over tall, he will then cut off whatever hangs over the bed. Now, Percy, knowing this version of Percy knows the stories. His mom did, unlike in the book, the movie, sorry, the series mom attempted to prepare Percy in her own way. She attempted to prepare him by telling him the Greek myths and by encouraging him to trust his heart and like basically don't let anyone else influence him. That's how she prepared him. Because she wanted him to learn from the mistakes of the gods as well as now that this is my interpretation. She hasn't said it, but I assume that's why she told the stories, and because again, if if the monsters, dog, if the monsters are basically come back after centuries of being gone, they would typically have the same weaknesses, if not. If they haven't learned from. Now we have seen some creatures getting a bit clever, like again with the whole trap of the Lotus Casino. It has evolved. Instead of doing the same trick where it relies on you eating, it now tries to just it uses a gas. So there's that. But again, that's how she prepared it, and because of this version of Percy knows the stories, he is very much aware of like, okay, going into this place, this guy is going to try and get me to sit on something, or whatever. He's going to try and trap me. So he laid a trap with Annabeth. Grover waited outside. He went in seemingly by himself. They spring their trap, pushing Krusty onto a bed, and he gets wrapped up. So apparently Krusty was designated to be the guard of this entrance to the underworld, this side entrance, a back door, if you will. And eventually, Percy and Grover and Annabeth, uh, get past them. Now, I will say, in terms of all the portrayals of the underworld, I absolutely love this. There are two underworld, like there are two depictions of the underworld that I tend to be like I consider like high tier in terms of like that's absolutely amazing. It is stunning to look at, and I want to see more of it. There's Hell from the show Lucifer. Like absolutely love it. I love the volcanic rock basalt all over the place. What the hexagons, the massive pillars, the hallways. It's like a labyrinth, and then there's just doors in the walls all over the place to each person's personal hell. Loved it. Actually, um, that is one of my favorites. I forgot about this one. That would be my third favorite. Um, Second favorite is the hell that is depicted in Visipop's Has Been Hotel as well as Hell of a Boss. And that, like, because there's just a lot of stuff going on. Each ring is very unique. That's why it stands out to me. And I'm like, oh wow. And clearly Visipop has did some lore and like there's some deep lore going on there, and I absolutely love it. Despite the music, I'm not a big fan of musicals, but I tolerate it for that stuff. And then we have number one, which is now this, and the reason why this is number one is it's just there's a lot of layers to it. You feel like it's underground because the way it's depicted, it's like you see these like there's a cloud. There are clouds above, but then poking through the clouds, you see like stalactites, just poking through, and I'm like, yeah, you get a sense that this is the underworld, like this, because again, in Percy Jackson, it's not metaphysical. They didn't teleport to another dimension. This is physically in our world. Like if I was to in the Percy verse, in the Rick verse, if I was to dig enough and deep enough, I would apparently get to the underworld. Now, mind you, I'm immortal, so the mist would make me see something different. And also I imagine it's probably impossibly deep. So there's that. So yeah, like I absolutely love this, and again, it ties into what Hades was also the god of. He wasn't just the ruler of the underworld; he was also the god of riches. And again, and there's a reason for that. I'm disappointed they didn't bring it up here because he mentions it in the first book when he's talking to Percy. But anyway, we'll get to Hades when we get to it. So a big change here is the entrance. In the series, as I said, Procrusteus is the guardian of the entrance, and there's actually he has a door in his office called keep that's labeled keep out. That's the entrance. In the book, it's the entrance is disguised as a music studio called DOA Studios. I don't know. It's supposed to be Dead or Alive or Dead on Arrival. I don't know, but it's DOA. And the guardian there is Chiron, the ferryman, and he is addicted to Italian suits. He loves being well dressed. And in the book, Percy actually and Annabeth actually was mainly Percy. They had to sort of bribe him in order to get him there. And Percy's like, I'll even talk to Hades about getting you a raise. Like it's just their interaction is just hilarious. I absolutely loved it, which is why I'm disappointed that they cut that and removed it from the story. And then, but here when they meet Chiron the ferryman, he's like he rats them out pretty much immediately. It's a little disappointing. The our view of the of Cerberus is also quite different. In the book, he is the dead walk underneath him. The way it was described is think of a busy airport. That's how the book essentially describes the underworld, or at least entering the underworld. It's like an airport because people have to either choose to not be judged and go to the fields of Asphodel, or they can risk being judged and either get a punishment or go to Elysium, or even go to Asphodel. If they haven't done anything overly good or overly bad, they will go to Asphodel that way. So there's a higher chance of going to Asphodel than not. But again, it's a choice whether or not people want to be judged. Or if they want to, or if they get Elysium, they can choose to reincarnate and try and get Elysium again 3 times. Which I've always wondered begs the question, like, does that mean your soul remembers that you've passed Elysium, you got Elysium beforehand? Like, what's the dominant soul? I always wondered that. And also, like, does that mean you, like, if a demigod tries to get Elysium, because it most often is a demigod that gets Elysium. If a demigod gets Elysium and they choose to reincarnate, does that mean um, they get reborn as a demigod? And if so, is it going to be the same god? And that, like, it's weird. Rick Riordan hasn't gone into details on how that works. Um, but yeah, if you get Elysium 3 times in a row, and you choose reincarnation, you then get to go to the Isles of the Blessed, the pinnacle of the afterlife. Now we get to see all 3 like results in the book. We see Asphodel, the fields of Asphodel, which is just packed. We see the fields of punishment. We see Elysium in the distance. They don't actually get close to the. They don't get to the punish. They don't go close to the punishment or the Elysium. They keep their distance. So we only see them off in the distance, and then tiny little islands in the center of Elysium is the Isles of the Blessed. And he's like, "Wow, no wonder people like there's so few people there." Um, but yeah, no, I absolutely love it. But yeah, no, the way they get into the underworld is they do have to break the rules, and the way that the skeletons are described, they're described as security skeletons. Like, they wear like little uniforms and all that, which is pretty cool. So, security ghouls. That was it. Security ghouls, not security guards. Security ghouls. Which I thought was very hilarious because like it also implies that they have uniforms. So yeah, it was just amazing. In the book, we don't get that immediately. As I said, Chiron rats them out. They get chased by Cerberus. In the book, they actually placate Cerberus, and Annabeth sort of bonds with Cerberus by using a giant red ball that she got from um, the water park, and she's actually upset when she has to leave, and so is Cerberus. Cerberus actually even whimpers. He's like, "Oh, like you're like he clearly wants to play, and he's upset that she's leaving." In the series, however, he's a bit more. He's fairly more aggressive, but we do see Annabeth sort of bonding with him a little bit. She placates him by scratching behind his ears. And again, we see Annabeth being clever, which again, I like the moments when we see Annabeth being clever or wise. It's just, I always like it. It's very enjoyable. She throws, they have like a small, like, stress ball that squeaks that they gave to Grover to help him with his anxiety about being underground, because Grover does not like to be underground. She tosses it up because there's a big, massive wall, so people can't just simply walk in, and she tosses it up onto the wall because Percy and Grover, got up there by Grover's shoes to escape Cerberus while she was scratching behind his ear. So she throws it up, knowing, I guess she guessed Percy or Grover would squeeze it, which then caused Cerberus to jump up. He's like, "Oh, squeaky toy!" And he jumps up, almost reaching the top of the wall, and they're like, "What the hell?" And then when it goes back down, they realize Annabeth's hanging onto the wall now. So she got Cerberus to jump high enough so that then she jumped from Cerberus onto the wall, and then they had to pull her up. Again, very clever. She then squeezed it again and tossed it into the river Styx, hoping for it to just lead Cerberus away. It's at this moment that Grover realizes he lost his pearl. So, in the previous video that I talked about Percy Jackson, I did have a small complaint, and it was about the fact that they have four pearls, which sort of removed the stress of like how are they going to get his mom out. It returned with them losing the fourth pearl. Now, not gonna lie, I feel like hold on folks, I'm just gonna have a quick sip here. Okay, I feel like the fourth pearl was an oversight. Not no. I'm not going to say this is not fact. This is not fact. This is just a theory I'm having. I feel like someone wrote in a fourth pearl. They it was there, and it was something that Rick did not notice. But then when they were maybe filming this one, maybe he did notice, and he's like, "Hold on," or maybe it was some other writer again. I feel like the fourth pearl in the sixth episode, because keep in mind, folks, it's right at the end. I honestly feel like the fourth pearl was an oversight. They realized it when they were doing this episode, and they're like, "Oh, we need to get rid of the fourth pearl. If they have four pearls, then what's the like? You know, they're just gonna grab his man, get out. There's, oh god, no, we messed up again." That's my theory. I honestly feel like they realized it, and they wrote in a way to get rid of the fourth pearl. Because I'm going to be honest with you, the way they got rid of the fourth pearl makes absolutely no sense. I'm not gonna. Again, it's. I know it's a bit late now, but I realize I have been given too many spoilers for the series, and I'm gonna try and dial back for future talks uh, about shows and whatnot that I might do. Again, I don't always do these type of videos, but when I do, if I do in the future, I'm gonna try and hold back by not giving too much info. Uh, I'm gonna try and do broad strokes, you know. But yeah, the way they got rid of the fourth pearl makes no sense, because how did X character survive? Like, what happened to them? Like, no, it makes absolutely no sense. it it's no, just no. It's funny, yeah, it leads to a funny moment, but come on, like, I know this is a show about gods and demigods and mythical creatures, but there's a limit of this that I can, suspend my disbelief at, when that with that scene, it's like, just no, no. That is, in my opinion, that is by far the worst scene in the series so far. Is by far the worst, because it absolutely feels like it absolutely makes no sense, and it feels like it was put in just to address the Pearl issue. Being honest with you, that it completely feels that way, and you don't want that in a show, or a movie, or a book. Anyway, so they managed to they spot Hades' castle in the distance, from the top of the wall. So they climb down and they enter the fields of Asphodel. And the fields of Asphodel is far more depressing than it is in the book. And fair play. It like the thing is, folks, it is neither a punishment nor a reward, and it feels that way. Like, oh my god, damn. I am disappointed that Grover and Percy don't. I'm disappointed that Percy doesn't bring up like what do the other mortals see when they're down here, because again, there are the other religions in the world still exist. Christianity still exists. Catholicism, which again Christianity falls under, but like all of those religions still exist. So what do they see? Like, because that's what Percy asks. He's like, "What? Wait, hold on. Shouldn't he not go to his afterlife?" And Annabeth's like, who's to say what he's seeing through the mist?" So like that's an interesting thing. Like, one, souls are still a thing, but we as mortals would see the underworld differently. That man, because he did very bad things, apart from what was mentioned in the book, and so but because he's a pastor, and because there's that subconscious, maybe he's doesn't fully believe in his religion because again he was running a scam, but maybe that's what he'll see. Maybe he'll see Hades as Lucifer, and the fields of punishment as what the Bible says to be hell. So maybe that's what he sees through the mist. Because again, the mist distorts the what's going on to be what the mortals can comprehend. Which is a little bit funny because we do have all the Greek myths, so theoretically we could comprehend them. But anyway, um, so another big change here is Annabeth and Percy and Grover in the books make it to Hades Pass. However, here they when Annabeth is describing how Asphodel works, they hear dog barking and they're like, "Oh shit, it's Cerberus." Percy and Grover start running. After a bit, they're like, "Wait, where's Annabeth?" They look back and they see that Annabeth, that she has a regret, and there's now a rue growing. There's a root coming out of the ground, wrapping around her leg, and yeah, she's like, they try and get her out, but she's like, "Keep going, guys," and she's like, "I trust your dad." Now it's just Grover and Percy. They exit. They get out of the fields of Asphodel, or I suppose in this case it would be the forest of Asphodel. Um, so they are now in a desert, and they are noticing something very odd going on because uh, again doing these videos, it is sort of impossible. I feel like it is sort of impossible not talking about spoilers because they're like I just can't, and I'm understanding why. Um, One of my favorite YouTubers, like he does actually have to give spoilers. Like he in all his videos, in his chapter reviews of One Piece, he does have to give spoilers. It is impossible to not talk about him. So okay, I should just give up. um, but yeah, Grover and Percy are both finding it odd that Cerberus is not chasing them anymore, and where was he? And Grover starts walking sideways, and he's like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "I don't know. It's the shoes." And Grover starts being pulled by his shoes, the flying shoes. Just as a recap, which were given to Percy by Luke, and they're carrying Grover to a big, massive hole in the ground, like a deep chasm. And Percy saves Grover. They're like, "Oh shit!" Yeah, he takes out his pen, stabs into the ground, holding on to Grover. Um, it looks like he's holding on tight. I actually thought Grover was going to have to take out his pearl, smash on the ground in order to save his life. It doesn't happen. The shoes slip off of Grover's hooves and they fly into the pit. While they're trying to get away from the pit, Percy, out of relief of saving his friend and also just exhaustion, slams back into the ground and hears a metal clang. They're like, what's that? So he sits up, moves the bag, opens the bag, and there's the Master Bolt. Now, I feel like how now, as much as I praised the underworld depiction in the series, the book did do a better job with the pit scene. They did a lot better, and also, in my opinion, they also they did the big reveal a lot better. Again, folks, the series I should have done, I forgot to do this at the start of the video. Rick Riordan. Now, again, folks, I'm a real big fan of Rick Riordan. Again, I love his books. I am currently re-listening to Percy Jackson and the Last Olympian, the fifth book in this series. Now it is my, like, I don't know how many times I've re-listened to the entire series. I am also re-listening to the Titan's Curse with my girlfriend. So for I don't know how many times now, and so I am a huge fan. I even plan to get in some art commissioned based on like just an OC like character for myself. But like, folks, so like, I am a big fan, and as much as I will say there are some things in the show that I don't like. There are things that I do like, and here's the thing: even the things that I don't like, I'm not gonna say Disney ruined Percy Jackson. I'm not going to say that. And do you want to know why I'm not going to say it? And I'm trying to look directly at the camera when I say this, because the executive producer of the show and the writer of the show is Rick Riordan. Okay? The author of the books is the writer for the series, and he's the executive producer. Every single change in the series is approved by the creator of the whole story. Me and no other fan has the right to be like, no, you can't do this. He is the goddamn author. Okay? Now there's a reason why I'm saying this, folks, and it's because so many people, again, I'm going to be bringing it up in another talk video. There's another video I'm going to be recording after this, and I'm going to be talking about Percy Jackson and another thing, because again, I'm going to be talking about fandoms. But anyway, moving on. They did the reveal fairly early. Now, as I said, the book, in my opinion, does have the better big reveal of the lightning bolt. Here, it's again, it's sort of cool, but because it does lead to a better moment. It has a great moment for Grover, because they stand up and they're like, because they both realize we can just head back. We can head up to the surface and give Zeus the Master Bolt. But Grover's like, after we get your mother. Great moment for Grover. Because the thing about Grover, folks, that you need to know is he is the type of friend that every single person wants to have. He is He is the go of Friends, and I mean that more than just the fact that he's part go. He is absolutely the go of Friends. Oh, absolutely amazing. Love Grover and Tyson. Tyson's also a go. And Tyson is another character in Percy Jackson, by the way, folks. Uh, but yeah, folks. Oh, Tyson and Grover. Oh, goats. So yeah, uh, great moment for Grover. Absolutely loved it, and I loved the delivery done by his actor. So they walk up to Hades' palace. It is very cool. There's one thing I wish they would have done, which is showcasing the just the vast army, or like the army that Hades actually has at his disposal. Um, because in the books they see undead soldier skeletons wearing military gear from all different eras, wielding weapons from all different eras. They even describe AR-15s being held by some skeletons and personalized rockets. So like Hades' army is wow. I can see why Hades has a bit of an ego or confidence in the whole conflict situation, due to the fact that like whereas Poseidon's army would be mostly merfolk and things at sea, like Zeus, we never really get a depiction of it, like what his army would look like. But like for the most part, like from what I gathered, none of them are really modern gear, whereas Hades' weapons and army would be a lot more versatile because they have a lot more different tactics going on as well. Like I imagine Hades' army would be a lot more adaptable in conflict, but that, which makes sense because he rules over the dead. Because again, he is not the god. He's not the god of death. He is the god of the dead. He's the ruler of the dead. Big difference. One, but yeah. So, and I also loved like when they enter his palace in the series, and there's a platform that Grover and Percy stand on, and it rises. So like, and again, I love this whole like the way his palace is. It's like his palace is like a giant stalactite that goes down to the ground, and so the logic is you enter from the bottom and you rise up, and the platform rises into the throne room. Absolutely brilliant. And again, you can see his the thrones in the distance. So I just love the idea of like Hades just sitting there as someone rises up. We don't get that. They enter the throne room. It's empty. You hear footsteps echoing, and you see Hades walking up. I have no idea who's the actor who plays Hades. Let's see details. No. Let's click onto the episode. Nope. Let me mute it. And we're going to try and get to the credits. No, I don't want to watch the show. I just want the credits. No, I don't want to see about... Alright. Here we go. Cutter, specialty cutter. Canadian casting by young Percy. Asphodelian, administrator, Karen, costume designer. What the hell? It skipped. Such a designer. Nice, so that's co-starring. So okay, that's the co-starring list. So we want to rewind a bit more. And as per usual, it's whenever I'm doing these videos and I'm trying to get certain information, I'm just going to go into Google. Hades, Percy Jackson, show, actor. There we go. And it won't show me because Screen Round won't show me because of my blocker. Uh, so here we go. No, it brings me straight to Screen Round. I just want the act. That's it. Jay Duplass. I'm not familiar with the actor. He seems familiar. Let's see. What else would I possibly know him from? Wow, really? I don't know why he seems familiar to me, folks. But he's an executive producer in a lot of things. But he shows up in a few other things as well. Okay, so yeah, he mostly is an executive producer for shows, which is very interesting. Hmm. But yeah, Jay Duplass, he plays Hades, and I like his portrayal because now this I will say this they touch on something that's a bit more in the Greek mythology than Rick Riordan touches on. Rick Riordan is trying to balance his portrayals of Hades. On one hand, he's trying to portray Hades as he is in the Greek myths, which is not that bad. He's not that bad of a guy. Like I've read so many Greek stories where Hades is actually not a villain. He's actually pretty nice, and one of the arguably worst things he's ever done is kidnap the goddess Persephone. But even in that story, he did it because that was the advice he got from Zeus. So I would blame more Zeus than than Hades on that. Um, but yeah, it's just amazing of like how much in Greek myth Hades is not the bad guy, and in most cases he's just doing his job. Like for example, this story with Odysseus. I think that's no was Odysseus. Anyway, the story about the Greek hero who goes to save his wife from the underworld or something like that. Um, and he's warned, don't look at them until you exit the underworld. Like again, Hades' job is to manage the underworld, and that does not include just letting people take souls willy nilly, from there. So, like again, Hades is just doing his job. He's not a villain, and again, I like how the Greek myths portray him as that. And Rick Riordan though is trying to balance that because again, keep in mind, most media portrays Hades, let's face it, as a villain, and I don't know. I'm curious about when that started, because like growing up, I know I watched the Disney movie Hercules where he is the main villain, and in fact he wants to free the Titans to overthrow. Zeus. Um, and that's just nowhere near what the version of him that's in the Greek myths and whatnot. And again, I'm just curious about when did Hades start being portrayed as like the villain? Because like he's just started being treated as the villain all of a sudden in most media, as opposed to a god that's just doing his job. And Rick Riordan tries to balance that in the sense of Hades is bitter at, for one, how he's viewed, and also by his by the disrespect that he does get, because this is a thing that does happen in Greek myths, the disrespect that he gets from the other gods. So, and again, keep in mind, by the time the Percy Jackson shows up, this has been ongoing for thousands upon thousands of years. So obviously, like, he has a bit of a chip on his shoulder. And also, his children, like his demigods, apparently also don't get respect, which also pisses him off. He's like, "Hold on, I'm one of the big fucking three, and yet, like, my children are so fucking powerful as well. Like, why are they not getting respect?" And like, let's face, and keep in mind, folks, when we, in terms of this series, um, like when Percy first shows up at camp, there's no cabin for Hades, who has demigod children. And as you get folks who watch the show, who only will watch the show, which again I recommend you do read the books. As someone who's read the books, I sympathize with Hades because from the get go, we like anyone who knows about Greek stories and who knows about the goddesses, uh, a few goddesses in particular, will realize that there are cabins to but some goddesses that will literally have no children, yet they have cabins, and they were given cabins to just purely out of respect. Cabin 2, which belongs to Hera, is always empty. It will always forever be empty because Hera is the goddess of marriage, and she's not likely to cheat on Zeus, because then she would be a hypocrite. So yeah, her cabin is purely honorary. It's purely there to honor Hera. All Always gonna be empty. Then you have Artemis, the goddess of the hunt and the moon. She she's a goddess that is generally portrayed as despising men, and it is addressed that, like, hold on, she's one of the maiden goddesses, because again she is also the goddess of maidens, and in this case, I'm using the term maiden not for women, but for its ancient term. The ancient term for maiden was virgin. So she is never going to have kids. Cabin's always empty. Now it does get used. It does get used, and it will probably be brought up in season 3 of Percy Jackson and the Olympians by Disney Plus, if they get to season 3. But yeah, it does get used, but for the vast majority of the time, like 90%, 95% of the time, it's going to be empty. Hades, however, doesn't get a cabin. And it is acknowledged that he does sire demigods, and yet there is no cabin. So much just like essentially like they're either in Hermes' cabin or they're not a camp, basically. Which we already know how dangerous it is for demigods not at camp. So I can understand why Hades in the book he's antagonistic, but he's not a villain. You know, Now, in the book one, sorry, in the series, he is an absolute delight. He's like, all right, oh, I know what you're here for. I'd like to cut your jib. That's a nautical term. Like he is trying to be nice to get to Percy and Grover. He even offers some food, which, let's face it, anyone who knows anything about Greek myth, it doesn't get brought up in the series, but anyone who knows anything about Greek myth is like, that is that is a very cleverly veiled trap. I absolutely loved it. I love the idea that like he's portraying himself as being nice while also laying out this like little trap. But he real person like my mother. He's like, right down to business. Okay, come on, she's over here. he uh, he he instead of get sitting on his throne room and summoning her with magic or whatever, because again he's a god, folks. He can do that. If he can teleport to the underworld, he can certainly do that. Instead, he's like, come on, he just around the corner, like hidden away by the big block that where the throne sits, is a lounge chair, like a leather sofa and armchairs and a coffee table, stuff that you would see in a sitting room. He walks in, he walks there, and he picks up a blanket and he starts folding the blanket, which implies that Hades, while Percy and Grover and Annabeth were going through the underworld, he is probably sitting back on his sofa or on a chair in a nice little blanket, doing whatever. He's just chilling. He's just relaxing. The the portrayal of Hades being just so like not so unantagonistic, I absolutely love, and I could see the Greek, like the proper Greek myth version of Hades being like that in the modern day, being just like, hey guys, yeah. But I could also see him being a little antagonistic due to the fact of the disrespect he gets. Now, nearby is a golden stat. Well, is Percy's mom, frozen like a golden statue in the pose that he was. He was like, there she is. You're welcome, by the way. Typically, being crushed by Minotaur is a terminal diagnosis. And again, like, it's very clear he is fishing for a thank you. Which again is not. It's just a portrayal of the fact that Percy, sorry, the writers, aka Rick Riordan, is trying to portray the fact that Hades is not a bad guy, and Percy is like, well, I'm not. I have the thing here, and so give her back, like, and all that, and he's like, oh, I don't want the Master Bolt. He's like now this is a big change in the book. In the book, he does want the Master Bolt, mainly as a negotiation tool and as a way of being like, give me goddamn fucking respect, guys. You know, like he's like, well, I didn't steal it, but if you have it with you and you're in my realm, I might as well take it. Like he's being more opportunistic, as opposed to uh, now mind you, he did, and he's like, but I want what you took from me, and he's like, Percy's like, what did I take? He's like, hold on, before I give you my, that's my alarm. Again, it's just a cool back and forth between Percy and Hades, because like Hades is like, why would I want the Master Bolt? Like, why would I want war? Like, I'm doing pretty well down here. Like, now mind you, again, big change in the book. In the book, he does. It's pretty much the same argument. He's like, why would I want a war between Zeus and Poseidon? Percy in the book counters with, because it will increase your domain. And he's like, I don't need a war to increase my domain. I have thousands of followers every single day. They, and so much of my business has to be attended to by me. Do you know the commute I have to do to get to the, to get things done? Like, and again, I love the idea that Hades has a commute time because of how overpopulated the underworld is. And then also he has to pay wages to all like the undead that serve under him, like, and also to Chiron, because then Percy actually brings up, he's like, also Chiron wants a raise. It's like, of course he does. Ever since he discovered Italian suits, like, which again I just loved. But again, it's the same idea. Like Hades is also the god of wealth because all gems beneath the earth are his. So he is actually the god of wealth. He is the wealthiest of all the gods, by that logic, because all gems are found beneath the earth. If it's underground, it's his, essentially. Which I always find funny because, like, that means the ocean and the sky above the ocean is Poseidon's, but then the sky above land is Zeus. Now, and then he rules as also chief deity of all the gods. And then everything under the earth is Hades, which again is also very interesting because technically, by that logic, Hades owns the large. Like, Hades' domain is the largest because even the ocean has a bottom, which will then probably lead to the underworld. So arguably, Hades controls the largest domain, and his followers, his army, and his servants is constantly going up. It doesn't go down. Well, it probably goes down when people choose to reincarnate, or if their souls are destroyed for whatever reason. But for the most part, it's only going to go up because whenever someone dies, they go to the underworld. They become his. So, but yeah, it's pretty much the same argument. But like, he's like, I don't want the massive bolt. Give me back what you took from me. And he's like, what? And he's like, my helm of darkness. Someone stole it to steal the master bolt, and you had the master bolt, so you must have taken it. That's why he took his. He's like, I took your mother to get you down here so that you can give me my helm of darkness. And Percy's like, now Percy starts putting two and two together. He's like, Kronos, because Hades is going on about grudges. He's like, I have no reason to be jealous. That's my brother's thing. They're always going on about grudges and jealousy, and then Percy's like, Kronos, he would have the biggest grudge of them all, you know, and then Hades actually does something that's a bit out of his character. And it's a different portrayal, definitely a different portrayal in the book. He's like, oh, like Hades is like, oh, Kronos is involved. Ask. Percy's like, ask for what? He's like, ask for sanctuary. Um, I'll protect you. I'll protect your mother, and hell, I'll even protect the goat. Because like, wow, like Hades has just been like, I'll protect you. Give me the Master Bolt. I'll protect the Trivia. Because in his logic he's like, you just being a you being a lightning thief or whatever, like a conflict between Zeus and Poseidon, all dandy. You can just go back up and deal with that yourself. But he's like, but if Kronos is making moves to get out of exile, and you're his first call, you're in so much fucking danger from that. So like he's in me like, and again, the idea like he's trying to be nice now because technically the gods do refer to. Now we saw this with Ares. They do refer to demigods by their familial relations. Like Percy often calls Like when he's being nice to Hades, he does refer to him as uncle, and we do see that on occasion. And we even see like Ares throughout the book series refers to Percy as cousin because they are technically cousins. And we even see some other deities referring to like there was one god or lesser god that referred to Percy as I think brother. No, it was not that. But they refer to each other by cousin, brother, or whatever. And so like this is like I like this because this is Hades being like looking at what is essentially is his nephew and being like, ask for sanctuary and I'll protect you. Again, I like this portrayal of Hades. Now Percy turns it down. He's like, I'm going to accept your second offer. Sorry, your first offer, your helmet. And he's just like, hold fast, mom. Bam. Him and Grover escape to the surface, and uh, we get we get a lot of flashbacks of now again this ties back into the overall message of be yourself, don't let the gods or anyone else basically turn you into something that they want you to be, because we can't throughout this entire episode we got flashbacks of Percy and his mother uh, basically trying to get Percy into a special needs school, and his mom is struggling, and Percy overhears the principal of or the administrator of the school saying, "Look, we don't have the capabilities of doing it. You're gonna have to You're gonna have to do it yourself. Like the only other option I can because she already pulled him out of the school to get him into this new school, because he was accepted." And he's like, hold on, we had to change our minds because we got a letter from his counselor from the previous school, and we just can't take him. So you're probably going to have to homeschool him. And Percy hears his mom being very adamant about not homeschooling him. And clearly, this is a school outside of the city, far away from her. It's a boarding school, which means he's going to have to live there for X amount of periods, and except for holidays, where he'll then get to go home. So Percy, at this very young age, is feeling like his mom is trying to get rid of him. You feel very bad for the kid. Oh my god, it's just like I'm like, oh, you don't understand that she's just trying to protect you, because like cities are very dangerous for demigods. Um, which gets more and more evident as the story goes on. Like Annabeth shines light on like why cities are so dangerous. It's the reason why camp is so far in the countryside. It's near New York because of Mount Olympus and other stuff, but like it's a good bit out of the city because of how dangerous it is for demigods to be in cities. And yeah, she eventually even seeks advice from Poseidon, and the big line she says, and again Poseidon even agrees on this. Him not being in camp will prevent people from influencing him. He'll be his own person, and again, and Poseidon be like, when he needs me, I'll be by his side. That's when I'll meet him. And again, it's just and also I don't know the actor who they got to play Poseidon, but like it definitely feels like you can sort of see like a pain in the actor is amazing, very good. Like you can definitely tell that he wants, like he's right near Percy's, like he's you can tell he's trying not to look at him. He's because he's like Percy's like this is Poseidon, this is Percy. Poseidon is like so close to him. He's like, I can turn my head and look at my son. But you can tell he is resisting the desire. He's like, she even asks, like, do you want to, like, see him or even just listen to him, like, hear his voice? He's like, no, it's not time. And the pain in Poseidon, you can tell that there's a lot of pain in Poseidon for wanting to reach out to his kid, but knowing that he can't, because once he does, because again, the more aware a demigod is of the other world, the more likely his power is going to draw in monsters to try and kill him. And once Percy meets Poseidon, then that's it. So he's like, they're pretty much like, let him have a normal life, let him grow to be the man who, like, the person that he's meant to be, without the influence of my family, basically, for as long as possible. And Poseidon does reassure his Percy's mother by being like, his mom has raised him well. Like, you know, he's reassuring her as well. Like, hey, you're doing a good job. I know you're struggling. Like, they're both, all three of them are just struggling. Poseidon wanting to be there for his son, wanting to claim his son as his own, but can't. And the fact that the pain is so bad for him that he's not even looking at Percy. Percy feeling like his parents are pushing him away and they don't want him. Like, that's painful again for a child, obviously, and then for the mother who has to keep this secret from her child, and who sees her child suffering, knowing how to make him feel better but just can't, because it would put him in danger. Great acting from just great performances from the actors in this episode, folks. Again, there's one weak link in this episode, and again, it is the weakest link of the entire series, and that is what happens with Cerberus that causes the pearl to go missing. But that's it, folks. I pretty much addressed everything in this episode. Yeah. Oh my god. That's everything. Wow. 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 We are just an hour and 10 minutes under, and I've addressed everything. Oh boy. I believe the next episode is the last. I don't see how they're going to stretch it out, but they've surprisingly stretched out some parts of the series. Um, but yeah. Uh, so hopefully my next episode is not going to be as long as this one, but if it is, it's probably going to be because of, like, just a lot of different stuff. But damn. Oh, but yeah, I absolutely like this. Um, Now there's something that's coming up that I'm really excited for. Can't wait to see it. But yeah, oh god, it's gonna be a good one, folks. The next episode's gonna be a good one. Uh, this is the Celtic Nerd signing out. One name, one sky.